This is Walter Subatochny with the 28th Infantry Division History Project, and I'm here on August 3rd with retired Major General Carl Reese. Sir, thank you so much for your willingness to take time and talk with us a little bit and tell your story. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Sergeant Major. I really appreciate being able to give you my story.
Okay, great. Well, let's get started. Where were you born?
So I was born up in northeastern Pennsylvania. I was actually in a hospital in Scranton, but I grew up about 20 miles north of Scranton, just outside of a small town called Fleetville. Really nothing there except for the intersection of 107 and PA Route 407. So
Okay.
one flashing light at the corner. It's all it's there.
What were your parents or siblings feeling about you joining the military?
So, when I joined, I don't think my mother ever thought I'd actually do it, but, I was 17 at the time, so she had to give permission for me to join. So, maybe she signed on it. I probably a little bit reluctantly because she wasn't sure, but, she did it, and I'm thankful she did. It was probably the greatest decision I ever made, aside from marrying my wife.
Sounds good. What primary or secondary schools or college did you attend?
All right, so I went to Benton Elementary School in Fleetville, which was part of the Lackawanna Trail School District, and then I went high school at Lackawanna Trail, which is in Factorville, Pennsylvania. Uh, College, I've got a little bit of diverse background. So I joined the military, I went to MOS. I started in college and only lasted about a semester, and then I went to I was an LPN, so I went to LPN school, and actually the Army paid for that, made me a 91 Charlie in the Army. And then I worked. Then I went to physician's assistant school, so I went to King's College in Wilkes-Barre for that. I initially finished with a physician's assistant certificate, and then I went back and got my bachelor's degree in that. Subsequent to that, I worked as a PA for years, and then went back to medical school. So I did medical school at Penn State College of Medicine here in Hershey. Did my residency in Hershey. And then after that, I have a master's in health evaluation sciences from Penn State. And then plus tons of military schools.
So the colleges were after you had entered the military or prior
Yeah.
to?
Yeah, I was a senior in high school when I joined the military. So this was all during my service. I spent 44 years, 1 month, and 12 days in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard, and so all my education, everything was while I was serving in the Guard.
Okay. What prompted you to join the Guard, let's say, versus active duty
So
initially?
that's actually kind of a funny story. So when I was we didn't have a lot of money growing up, and I was looking for some ways to pay for college, and I'd looked at a couple of things. One of them, I know the Navy recruiter came by and talked to me and wanted me to work on their nuclear reactors. They were going to actually make me an E3. Sounded great at the time. But there was a postcard, like in a magazine, about joining the Guard and getting money for college. That was probably in my senior year, probably maybe October. So I sent it in and actually kind of forgot about it. And then lo and behold, probably beginning of April, I get a call from the recruiter from the 109th Infantry, Al Consman. And Al met with me, and then actually it was funny. I had my best friend Danny at the time. It's like, hey, I got this thing for recruiter. You want to come with me? So Danny and myself, we went down, met with the recruiter, and he talked to us, and next thing we knew, we were getting a physical, and Danny said to me, it's like, I'll join if you join. And I said, okay, let's join. So that's what we did. Now, I joined that to get money for college. And the side note is actually because I went split training option. That wasn't eligible, so I never actually did ever get money for college. But it was still a pretty good decision on my part.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of the buddy program is how you joined in, right?
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah. What was your most vivid memory of your time in Army school? Any of
Well,
them?
I got a lot of schools. I mean, it's, and a lot of them are really, really great schools. It's just, it's kind of the friendships I've made throughout the years with all the different schools. I mean, we went to basic training. There was a lot of kids there, and that was, our introduction into the Army, and then, AIT down at Fort Sam Houston, and then, I did NCO courses, and then officer basic. It's, the officer basic course, and then officer advanced course, and then the work. Then I did CGSOC, ILE, and then the War College. And all of those were great, and I a lot of good instructors and a lot of people that I met that I still are friends with.
Okay. So the best part of the schools, I'm guessing you're saying is your friendships that you developed is
Yes,
sort
I
of
would
part
say
of it.
that. And the secondary is the stuff I learned.
Yeah.
But it's really, really about the friendships and the people I've met, all these different schools I've gone to.
What was the worst part?
You know, the really probably in retrospect was never really any worst part. However, a 17-year-old kid and going to basic training for the first time and having to get your butt out of bed at like 3:30 in the morning, that was probably hard until you kind of learn that. And I think it took me probably 2 years to get used to getting up early, and now I always get up early. So, uh, as I think back of all the schools, it was a lot of work, but nothing was really hard. It was just work,
Yeah.
and it was good. And it taught you discipline, and it taught you problem solving too.
Did any particular instructor along the way stand out to you?
Well, there was a couple. So I still remember my drill sergeants. And that was 40 some years ago. Sergeant First Class Torres and Staff Sergeant Callipy. They were both Vietnam guys. And then there was a Spec 6, Cicernos was our instructor in AIT. Remember him vividly. And then as I gone through at the War College, our seminar leader was Colonel Joel Hillison. Joel was a great guy. So, I mean, those people still stick out to me. Every now and then I'll still reach out to Joel. He's down in Carlisle. So,
Okay. Um, what was the hardest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to, do you think?
it was, I honestly, nothing was really that hard. Again, it was just waking up, trying to get my butt out of bed early and getting used to that schedule and then go. It was always difficult when you're leaving your family for deployments or even, ATs and stuff like that, 2 weeks. But not that they were extremely hard, but that was probably the worst part about it.
Okay. What about the easiest part? What was that?
The easiest really, it was you learn stuff, you learn how to adapt, and you took the lessons learned and you were able to lead and help educate other soldiers.
Okay.
All you had to really do is listen to what you were told and learn it and do it. It was, especially early on as a young enlisted soldier, just had to do what you were told and do it well.
And you deployed to combat zones on a couple of occasions. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, the first one was with S412 at Bosnia with the division headquarters. At that time, I was kind of the senior doc for the division. Deployed with the unit I was with was actually the 328th. It was for logistical element, but it was under the division headquarters. That was a great experience. It was it was post 9/11. I mean, just post 9/11, so the security threat was up. There were Al Qaeda there. It was really we made a difference. There was still, with the war in Bosnia, with the people, there was still a lot of hatred, and I think we helped keep the peace, and I hope we made a lot of good friends there, and I think we helped mend it while we were there. So that was actually good. I mean, you had to watch out for landmines and a few other things here. My second deployment was to Iraq. That was a little not quite as nice. It was a little more stressful. And one of the problems I had was at the time the National Guard Bureau was centrally managing physician deployments. And it was the same time that our 2nd Brigade was deploying to Iraq. And I volunteered to go to 2nd Brigade for their entire deployment. The National Guard Bureau decided they were going to send me with part of the other rotation. So I ended up going with Mississippi, and that wasn't quite as well. I mean, you're not familiar with the people, and they didn't know me, whereas I was very familiar with the soldiers of the division going. As a matter of fact, Major General Gronsky had been who went as a brigade commander for that deployment, had been my battalion commander and my brigade commander. So I knew John very well, and was somewhat disappointed I wasn't able to go with him on that one.
So I understand your background's in urology, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And so what did you do as a urologist in combat?
Well, actually, I worked as a doc and the general surgeon. So when we were in combat, any operations that needed to be done, we did it. It was actually kind of fun. Got to do some appendectomies here and there, which I didn't normally do. But took care of trauma.
Okay.
And it was and learned a lot, and then also did just general medical care. I mean, when I was in Bosnia, it turns out I was actually the busiest surgeon in theaters because a bunch of guys wanted vasectomies and circumcisions for some reason. But hey, it kept me busy. But we had a couple times of trauma. We had general surgeon there too that I would help them out in surgery. So that was good. And then Iraq, I was kind of by myself. So
Did your experience in combat change you at all? And if so, how?
well, I can tell you, it made me a better surgeon. It took a lot of stuff. You had to gain confidence, and there were techniques that we're learning at the time. For instance, blood. We learned in combat that if you had to give somebody blood, you gave them whole blood if you can get it, which is very difficult back here in the States. But if you couldn't, you gave them packed red cells uh, and fresh frozen plasma and platelets with it. So you're trying to replete everything they were losing. And once I when I went back to working back here, anytime we needed blood, that's what I would do here. So a lot of the lessons that I learned there, I was able to bring back and use on my patients here back in the States.
Okay. Did your experience in combat change you personally at all?
Uh, it's you see a lot of awful things. So yeah, I mean, I think it changes everybody that goes there. Fortunately, I have a very living family, very supportive wife, so that's actually good. People that probably don't have great support structures, it's probably worse for them coming home. But but you also develop a lot of close friendships there as well.
Yeah, you kind of led into my next question was what kind of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving and with whom?
Oh, so I mean, there was, a lot of people. There were my peers, my subordinates they work with. I was very fortunate that I was able to lead and work with a lot of people that were, respected me and liked. They kind of liked the way uh, I handled stuff. And I've stayed friends with those people for 20, 30 years now, and even further back. I mean, I'm still my best friends are people that I served with. My best friend Dave. We go on vacations together, us and our wives. We actually were just away in May for a couple of weeks together. I have other great friends like Andy Knapp. We met Andy. It was kind of funny. We switched roles. Andy was a PA when he came in. I was still enlisted. I went to PA school, and then I went to med school. Then Andy was the PA working for me. So we're still close friends. Actually, in like 2 weeks, I'm going to his 70th birthday party up the house. So
Okay. How did you stay in touch with family and friends during your deployments? I know it's changed a bit over the years, but
yeah.
how did that
So
work for you?
and that's so what we so in Bosnia it was a little bit easier. So in Bosnia we had the internet, so I would email, a decent internet. So I'd email home to my wife every day, and then and she'd email back, and then once a week I'd be able to call home. We'd talk to her, just trying to adjust the time frame. And that worked very well. So I had a really very set schedule that I'd make the time. I'd call home about 1400 Central Europe time, which was like 08 here. Talk to my wife on Sunday mornings and the kids, and go off, and then email every day. It was kind of like the letters of past. I would also write a letter to my wife every day. I'd make an entry on it, mail it home, and then she would kind of do the same thing and mail it back. So it was kind of the hybrid email slash written letters, and it's I think we kind of as generations going forward are now looking at for you as a historian, a lot of letters from like World War II you're able to look into, and unfortunately we're going to lose some of that with the email. We won't be able to have that, that letter traffic. When I was in Iraq, it was a little bit more difficult. The internet wasn't that good. They had an internet cafe, but when you looked at, I got pictures, the computers that were in there were missing half the keys. Now I'm a 2-finger typer and have to look at the letters, so it was kind of hard trying to figure out how to exactly email.
You have to make your
But
letters.
yeah, uh, so but I still email home every day. Now the contractors, the Kellogg Brown and Root that were there, they did life support, logistical. They helped feed us and stuff like that. So, but they needed medical care, so I take care of them, and as a result, I was able to use their computers and their phones so I could call home.
Yeah.
Worked out pretty good.
What did you do? What did you do for recreation when you were off duty on your deployments?
So I still kind of am an avid runner. So I would run. It was a little bit harder in Iraq, but in Bosnia I can run depending on the day, I'd run the perimeter, which was, the whole perimeter was about 6 miles on the base, and then I'd go work out, and then email home. But it did a lot of work. I mean, I'd get to, we'd start doing sick call about 07. Sick call would run through the morning till about 1100. I'd go work out. Then we'd pick up afternoon sick call about 1400. We'd run that through till about 1600, where I'd have meetings. And then if guys were out on patrol a lot, I'd make appointments to have them come see them. I'd come see them in the evening, so they would be able to get the health care they needed. And then nothing's going on, I'd go work out, or I'd read a lot too. So.
Okay. Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events that occurred in any of the
Yeah,
deployments?
there was a couple of things I can remember in Iraq. I mean, there was, you're not supposed to, you got to watch. And some of these guys, they just don't listen. We'd get rocketed and we'd get mortared and stuff like that. And I was sitting out in front, kind of like the aid station / hospital type. And here comes one of the specialists. I could see him walking from a distance, kind of carrying something. He's getting closer. I'm like, Kitty, what is that you got? He goes, oh, I found this over by the wall. And I'm looking, he's like, put that down. It's a rocket.
Jeez.
Yeah, just, and fortunately for him, it was inert, but you never know. And then, I can remember distinctly. So we'd usually get mortared about the same time every day. And then you'd figure out where it was coming from. And then they neutralize that. And it'd take a little bit. So there was one morning I had just gotten out of bed. And I heard something going overhead, and it's like, and for years being out at, ranges and having stuff firing overhead, I'm like, that sounded like a mortar round going overhead. I didn't, you didn't hear it. And then it's like a few seconds later, I heard the detonation. It's like, oh crap, that is a mortar round. Then I started hearing it. So, I hadn't had my shoes on yet. So I popped my helmet on, popped my body armor on, grabbed my boots and ran out the door. And then I had to run in bare feet across the ballast, and it was like, ow, 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 and got into the bunker, whacked my head in the bunker, and then went to put my boots on and looked out, and I'm missing my sock. And I kind of look out there, and it's like, oh, crap, there's my sock. Well, I guess I'll wait till the mortar's over. But, yeah, just stuff like that.
Sure. What do you think was the best part of your service experience?
So really, my best part was, I really loved serving. I loved doing what we did for our country, and that was the best part. And as part of that, really was the friendship, because the people are friends, and it's the same reason. They were in it for the same reason, and they loved doing what they were doing. So that's how it became very important. So it was a great experience, and it was just the honor of being able to serve was by far. And I got to do lots of things, went lots of places that probably very few other people in the military have ever been able to do.
Well, you left the 28th Division at one point and you moved on in your career. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So I started in the first of the 109th Infantry. I was with them for 24 years. So I went from E1 through E5. I was actually a Spec 5 at one time, and then I was a Sergeant E5. Then I became a warrant officer with them, was their PA. And then as part of the warrant officer, then they switched us over to commission rank. Then I went back to med school, and then then they switched me from specialty corps to medical corps. And then we deployed to Bosnia. And when we got back from Bosnia, General Podlaski at the time, who was the CG, and I'd known General Podlaski when he was a major in the 55th Brigade, and then he was our battalion XO. He invited me to come up to be the division surgeon. So I was on the division staff for 10 years. And then once I left the division in 2013, I was the commander of the med det at the up at the Joint Forces headquarters. So I was on the Joint Forces headquarters for 4 years. And then after that, I got selected to be a GO, and I went down. I was at the headquarters Department of the Army. I worked for the Surgeon General of the Army, so I was initially the Assistant Surgeon General for Mobilization Readiness and National Guard Affairs, and then I was the Deputy Surgeon General for the Army National Guard when I retired.
Okay. Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yeah, it was July 2nd, 2023.
Was it a special day in any way that
It was, I mean, I got up and, it was my last day in uniform, went and, I really wasn't quite ready to go, but, I knew when I made general officer, I can only hang on so long.
Sure.
I still miss being in uniform. I really enjoyed my time. But, I did a retirement ceremony a little bit later, with that, but my last day in uniform, that was the very last day I was working, and I did what I had to do down at HQDA, and then drove home after it.
Are you still practicing medicine?
Yeah, I work over in the Lebanon VA now. I'm the Associate Chief of Staff for Surgery. I'm also the VISN 4 Chief Surgical Consultant over there. So
you mentioned earlier about using some of the techniques that you learned or experienced during your deployments in your civilian practice.
Yes.
Was that an adjustment? Was that a significant adjustment to make, or was it just something that was kind of natural?
No, it's something natural because it was stuff we had the research and stuff to back it up what we were doing. I think if you look at wars across history, some of the greatest advances of medicine has been because of wars, and this is just another prime example where we're able to take stuff and apply it to our civilian practices when we get back, because it's made a difference. And again, I didn't normally, I worked at Hershey Medical Center, which is a trauma center, but, as a urologist, we'd get involved with some of the trauma surgeons that do most of it. But, I went to a theater of operations where I was managing the trauma, a little bit more discreet, just not urological trauma, or coming and getting involved with the trauma surgeons for trauma surgery. So, however, coming back, they called me if you get called in the middle of the night to go help the surgeons with the trauma, I was much more comfortable. I can remember one night there was a trauma that came in. The trauma surgeon called me, and there was a kidney that needed to come out. So, I mean, it was pretty easy because the patient was already, the incision was already made and left. So I just did what I needed to do, reflected the colon. I had the kidney out in probably 5 minutes. The trauma surgeon thinking he was going to go get something to eat, and I said, "Eric, where are you going? I'm done." He goes, "Wow, would you just rip it out?" I said, "No, it's okay." So
Rip it out. Did your service in any way affect the way you relate to others, do you think, sir?
Yes and no. I mean, I treat everybody with respect, and I always treated soldiers with respect, and that's how it worked out, and listened to them. My service taught me a lot of discipline, and a lot of looking. Everything you do has a second and third order effect. So it's trying to look at what you're doing, trying to plant the plan, and if things don't go perfect, then look at it branches and sequels, how you're going to handle things like that. And I think that's very important. Actually, I still teach that today with people that work for me. And I've actually taught them. They say, "Yeah, so when you do this, what's going to be the second and third order effect of that?" So I'm able to apply that. So that's been very, very good, especially as in healthcare, especially an administrative part of healthcare as well.
Okay. Did you join any veteran organizations after you left?
Yeah, so I'm a member of the 109th Infantry Association. I'm also a member of the 28th Infantry Association, and then I'm a member of the VFW as well.
Do you attend any reunions?
I've attended a couple. The 109th, for a long time, they didn't really have much going, and then they started putting their association back together a few years ago. So they had 2 dinners that were very well attended. So I've attended both of them. In September, I'm actually going with the 100, and there's 4 of us going from the 109th to the liberation of to celebrate the liberation of Luxembourg and actually the Battle of the Bulge. That's they invited us over to the association, and Mike Jones, who's the president, put out a thing, and at the time he didn't think anybody was going to go, and I reached out to Mike and said, "Yeah, Mike, I probably can go. I don't want to not go, that's a very important milestone for not only the people of Luxembourg, but also for us as a unit. And that's actually, I'm looking forward to doing that.
Okay, sounds good. Couple more, if you might.
Sure.
How did your military experience affect your family in any way that you'd like to
So
talk about?
my wife has been very now. I was in the military before we got married, and my boys have only known me to be in the military. I have three boys. Until the time I retired, so they kind of got used to it. I mean, honest, there was a lot of weekends that I wasn't around because I was at drill and ATs. I missed a lot of weddings and family things because I was either away at AT or we had drill or something that weekend or we're away. But my wife again has been extremely supportive of this. She's been a doll through it, and my boys actually have been very supportive too. And that was how they grew up. That's kind of what they knew. So um, it was okay with them, and I think they've learned that freedom really isn't free. People have to go and sacrifice and maybe not be home for time. I mean, my first deployment, my youngest son at the time, I think he was 11, and he was really missing his dad then. It was kind of tough for him.
Are there any life lessons that you've learned from your military experience that you'd like to pass on to younger generations or new or young soldiers?
Yeah, so really, it's you know, uh, treat everybody with dignity, respect, listen, take command when you have to. You can take command as an E1 if if you're the guy that knows what's going on. Learn, really take to heart this. You can get nothing out of a school and graduate, or you can get a lot of things out of a school. Get everything you possibly can out of school, and take every opportunity that you can to learn. Every schooling opportunity you have, every opportunity you have to leave. Uh, make your mission. How do you get the yes and not say no to everything? I think you'll get a lot better, not only for the military but also in civilian life. It can frustrate you sometimes when people just automatically say no. It's like work together, work on camaraderie, and how to get the yes.
Okay. One final question. What was the one question you wish I would have asked you but didn't?
Huh. That's that's good. You asked me a lot of good questions. One thing I'd like to point out, maybe this is a bit of vanity, but there's probably only one of me in the entire United States military. I was enlisted. I was a warrant officer. I was a commissioned officer, and I was a general officer. So I can't imagine there's too many of those out there.
You're probably right.
And I was a Spec 5 too. And people don't even know what those.
Well, sir, thank you so much once again for taking the time to answer some questions and spend some time with us and share your history, your military experience with our viewers, and we greatly appreciate that.
Hey, thank you so much, Armand. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this.